Do you have a completed or nearly completed mobile game that you want to pitch to top investors? Women in Games International is hosting a 2-day pitch competition. On day 1, participants will have the opportunity to present their Android games to industry experts for feedback and mentorship. Gain valuable knowledge and insights from those who have already led the way in creating, pitching, and investing in mobile games. Day 2 will feature a rapid rounds competition where participants will pitch their game to top mobile investors for a chance to win up to $5,000 and more. There's no cost to get your name in the competition pool, but spots are limited, so sign up today at getwigi.com/programs.
Speedrunning is incredible to watch as a viewer. Some of your favorite games you've played and grew up with are broken right before your eyes. Not only are you shocked at how good players find the quickest and most groundbreaking strats, but you're also probably surprised at how much work goes into becoming a good speedrunner. Sure, on the outside it's mysterious, but on the inside, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears are shed to bring games alive in a new way. The other element of speedrunning you may not see is representation. Watching speedrunning, the focus is often on the game, and not always on the person. When you open your eyes, typically what you might see are male-presenting players. Have you questioned where women, femme, and non-binary players are in speedrunning? What about how they navigate becoming the best at their craft and representation? And whether or not speedrunning is for you. Today we have 2 incredible panelists who will take us on their journey and what it means to become an expert at speedrunning. I'm Robin, and this is Open World Dialogue, sponsored by Maximum Games. So let's learn a little bit more about our panelists here. First up, we have MetroidCrime. MetroidCrime is a queer Canadian internet broadcaster and speedrunner with both bold, eccentric, effervescent energy in a small package. Crime plays a wide range of video games on Twitch, in addition to fostering a caring and friendly community for her viewers to spend time in. She's also the founder of Lady Arcaders, an all-women's gaming collective. And last but not least, we have Panthur. Panthur is a 29-year-old speedrunner from Scotland, content creator, and all-around goofball. Thank you both for being here. I'm super excited. As I was telling you all off camera or off live stream here, I'm a huge speedrunning fan, and my experience with speedrunning actually started with either AGDQ or SGDQ in one of those years way back when. I don't remember what year it was, probably 2015 or something like that. But I remember watching people playing, and I got so excited because honestly, to that point, playing games was just playing them. You finish them, you're done. You maybe go back, you experience them. But there wasn't a thought in my mind of going fast in games. So that blew my mind, and I've become a fan ever since. So to start off, let's just start with the most foundational question ever. How would you define speedrunning? What elements are there that make it different from simply playing a game?
Speedrunning is simply trying to play a game just as fast as you can with the goal of, depends basically what kind of game you're running and what kind of category you're running, but it's basically just trying to complete a game as fast as possible. However you go about doing that is dependent on what you're playing and your style, but I feel like speedrunning also tends to extend the life of games that you're playing. You'll definitely play a game many more times speedrunning it than you would if you're just playing it casually, and that I think is a very special thing that kind of separates it from just playing a game regularly.
Yeah, I think the thing with speedrunning as well is that it challenges you to look at a game that you've played before in a totally different way. Like you're not just playing the game to experience it, you're now playing the game to see if you can take all the tools that they gave you for that game and then use them in a way that they didn't even think they could be used. And it also lets you really break games sometimes. Always fun to watch too.
So something that just popped up in my head just randomly, and I know the answer is probably yes, but when you're playing and you're doing speed running constantly of one game, like how do you not get bored? I'm sure you do get bored, but how do you not get bored with the game? itself?
So for me, the type of games I pick are games that I absolutely love, and like I tend to pick games with very good music specifically. I think that helps a lot because I know the songs so well, and it really gets me into the game I'm playing. And I think it helps to choose a game that you like truly love in one way or another, whether it's because you love the soundtrack, you love the art, or you just love how it feels to play, how it feels to nail tricks. And I feel like there is value in like taking a break from a game every once in a while. I feel like that always gives me a new perspective as to, I always find that I tend to nail more tricks after I take a little bit of a break. It just as a kind of to step back a little bit. But in general, I haven't quite had that problem, but I think it's just the type of games I speedrun.
I think for me, one of the things that stops me getting bored is the fact that no two runs you do are ever going to be the same.
Okay.
Like, you might nail one trick one time and then completely goof another and think, now I've got to adapt and try and see what I can do to make up the time that I've lost, if it's possible. Or if it's a complete run killer, you're just like, okay, I have to stop here, go back to the start, and then the next time you do it, your brain is, okay, that bit's coming up again. If you mess it up again, you've clearly got an issue that you need to work on in this part. But the good thing is that it doesn't matter how many, like, it depends on the length of the game you run as well, but for the most part, you'll never have the exact same run twice, and it keeps it from feeling stale or similar at any point.
See, for me, once I heard that, oh, this part's coming up, I would choke. That's how I know I can't be a speedrunner. Like, my brain would just like, oh, I can't do this.
I feel like that happens. That definitely happens to me too, even at someone who, like, I do speedrun a lot, but like, I know that there are definitely points where you can get in your head. For example, in Sonic 1, in Green Hill Zone, the very first level, there is this jump there. You have to do 3 rapid taps around a loop that you have to go on as Sonic. And every time it's the beginning, and if I mess it up once, I will continue to mess it up for the rest of the night. It's just one of those things where you get in your own head about something, and it's really difficult to break that cycle. It's a lot of speedrunning is requires a lot of concentration, and like it's heavily affected by like your emotional state, your physical state. There's so many different factors that you have to account for when you do a run. It's simply, am I feeling okay today? If not, then maybe I should not do it. Maybe I won't be productive. Yeah.
This is the reason why. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that is 100% right. Like, it's the same with me in a couple of the games I play. There are certain parts where if I don't do it the first time, I'm like, I can't do it today. It's just not gonna happen.
And see, at the end, this is the reason why I argued that this was a sport, and people are like, no, speedrun is not a sport. I'm like, no, it's a sport. It's a sport to me. Anyway, let's continue. How did you get your start in speedrunning? What was the first game you speedran successfully?
For me, it was Sonic the Hedgehog. I started speedrunning because I've been watching GDQ events for a long time, but I never thought that it was a thing I could do until I saw a Sonic the Hedgehog run at, I want to say it was like one of the GDQ events in 2020. And I saw it and I was like, I'm very familiar with this game. I grew up with the Genesis, played all the classic Sonic games. I got them all behind me right now. And like, huge fan. But so like, it was kind of like something that I didn't think I could do. And then I saw someone doing it and I was like, wait, why not? And like, I just went for it. Like, the best thing to do is just go for it. And I immersed myself in learning what other people do to learn to speedrun. I got involved in the communities and watched a whole bunch of videos at different points in people's like speedrunning careers. So I'd watch world record runs. I'd watch like the last place on the leaderboard, somewhere in the middle, and get an idea of what kind of tricks are people doing? How difficult does it seem for me as a beginner? And I'm so happy I made that plunge because I love speedrunning. Yeah.
For me, I started like the same as you. I've been watching like GDQ and stuff for years. I started because it was not long after I first got the Resident Evil 3 remake. I was streaming it, and a couple of my friends we were just talking about how GDQ was on, and a couple of them were like, "How funny would it be if you just speedran this game?" And at the time I was like, yeah, and I was like, again, why not? So
yeah.
What I did, I just went to the world record for the category that I wanted to run, which was just any percent, like as fast as you can, and it was New Game Plus because it was slightly easier. And I just watched the world record video, like I had it on my second monitor, and I was like, I'm just gonna watch the video, do what they're doing, and then when they get ahead of where I am, pause it, and then I ran through the whole game like that. And then the second time I was like, so I know what path I'm taking, And then over time, it got easier and easier to remember where I was going. It was just about certain tricks. I was like, okay, I'll look up I joined like the Discord for it and everything. And I was like, I'll look up the like tools and help that they've got, use that and incorporate it into the run that I've got. And then over time, it just became about trying to do it more efficiently so that I had a good solid run. And the first time that I set like what I would consider a good competitive time for it felt incredible, because I'm like, I just speed ran this because a couple of my friends were like, just do it. And that was it. That got me going.
Like for me, like I'm just like hearing both of you say, just do it. I'm like, oh,
it really is that easy.
It is that simple. Simply choose to play a game quickly, and you're a speedrunner.
Okay,
Even if you're speed jogging, even if you're speed jogging through it.
I think I'm gonna try something. I'll figure it out. But like, I'm just like, oh my gosh, like to even remember these things. But then I guess it's a muscle memory thing.
Absolutely.
Like I said,
Yeah,
it's like a
anything.
sport. You get it, and then you get better at it, and then you're a part of it. And so maybe I should just think about that. You guys, both of you are just like literally getting me into it. Next thing I know, I'm gonna put like speedrunner in my name or something like that.
Yeah,
Anyway,
exactly.
anyway,
Next time it'll be us interviewing you.
Oh,
Yeah,
Lord.
yeah,
No,
hey.
don't interview me about this. Oh, no. Let's keep it this way for now. So what was something you thought about speedrunning that you ended up realizing was much more complicated than what you expected?
So there's a few things. I mentioned this a little bit before, but like having your emotional state and like your physical state, mental state, about how much that affects your gameplay is something that I didn't think really about before I started. But like really like having just like bad days makes such a huge difference. Like the thing about like getting inside your own head with tricks. But I guess another thing is like just the energy it takes to deal with sometimes, hey, you're about to PB, but you were a second too late. And the toll that type of thing takes as well. I guess I didn't really consider how much of a weird, like how being stuck at a plateau would affect me. It's interesting. Yeah. Sorry, yeah, there's that. I also, one other thing that I personally didn't realize, but taking care of your hands is a really big thing. Making sure that you like do proper stretches, making sure that you are like making sure to wear like gloves, compression gloves or stuff, whatever you need to make sure that you are taking care of your like hands. Really not something I super considered before speedrunning, and actually you gotta really do that because you're making repetitive movements constantly. Yeah,
that one of the like one of the things you said there that was the exact same as me was not realizing that it can take an emotional toll, especially like if you think you're doing really well. And I try not to look at my run timer because I know if I look at it, I'm going to get in my own head. But at the same time, I'm like, what if I look over and I'm like really far ahead and I'm going to get in you? But then I look over and then I'll mess something up and I'll lose time. And I'm like, I'd stop looking at it. But another thing that I didn't realize it would be so hard, and it sounds really silly, but picking a game there's also the thing of like, you don't want to pick a game and then realize that you've learned all these things, but you don't actually enjoy running it. And
Definitely.
You also don't want to pick a game and then feel like you can't do the run if there's things that are too difficult and you feel like you've wasted time. Or even just picking a game that you're like, what's going to be fun to look at for hundreds of hours over and over. And once you've done that, like you said, things like looking after your hands, like the main run that I do is about 40 minutes long. So I try whenever there's cutscenes, like you can skip them because the run timer will stop during them. But for some, I like to just stop and let the longer ones run for a bit so I can like stretch my hands, get them off my keyboard and my mouse, just not get my hands into a position where I can't use them anymore. Because I've definitely had times where I've run the game maybe two and a half times because I've messed something up. But then my partner will be like, you've been running that game for 3 hours now. And I'm like, yeah, I should probably stop because I'll start to get like numbness down the side of my hand because I'm just keeping my hands in one position. So I had to buy like compression gloves and everything. And it wasn't until the first time that the side of my hand went numb, I was like, oh, I really got to start looking after my hands, because even though I'm having an intense amount of fun doing this, if I screw my hand up, I'm not going to be able to do it anymore. Like the physical health side of it was something that I didn't realize was going to be quite as much of a struggle, but it's something that once you learn it and you learn the things that help it along, keep your hands from getting sore, or even your eyes, because it can take a strain on your eyes staring at the screen for so long, especially if it's a bright, colorful game. You've got a lot of like colors and lights and flashing all the time. It's good to know when you can take a look away, stretch your hands, stretch your back, because I don't know about you, but I'd sit like a shrimp when I'm playing games.
Yeah, like pushed over in like gremlin mode. Yeah, like
over. Like all your stream can see is like the top of your forehead.
Yeah.
But I think that's you streaming. It's like learning to stretch and drink water, like the same stuff that everyone tells you to do when you're playing games anyway, but like it's worse when you're speedrunning because you get so locked in, because when you're just normally playing a game, you can pause whenever you want and walk away. But if you're in the middle of a run, you can't just stop because the timer will keep going and you're like, why was your run 25 minutes longer? And you're like, went to have a drink and have some food, came back, kept running. So learning how to balance your time and your health was something that was a lot more difficult than I thought it was going to be.
Okay, people out there, you heard it. I know I did, because I'm just like, because I think the biggest thing that's like stopping me from ever running anything is just the compulsion of wanting to be the best, and that's a problem for me. I know I'm not super competitive, but if it came down to a video game that I really loved and then I wanted to be the best, that I'm gonna obsess about it, and that's gonna be a hard thing to let go, because I also am not that good with either, so whatever. But anyway, I would love to know, how did you both get good at speed running? I said earlier, I do think of it as a sport. So what does it take to start and then quote unquote debut as a part of the larger speedrunning community?
So I think that a lot of people tend to, it's a lot easier to get started in speedrunning than you'd think. Literally just have to pick up a game and play it. And like, obviously there's considerations about what type of game. You got to think about a game that you would like. But honestly, if you have the intent and want to do something, then that's all you need to do. It's, yeah. So literally just, I think in terms of getting good at speedrunning, it literally just takes practice, like any other sport, really. It's going to take time for you to get used to it. You got, depending on the game too, like even if you're learning a new game, like you got to learn all the tricks from it. You got to do a bunch of research about, hey, what's the best strat to do here? What can I do at my skill level? And that's going to change as you get better at the game. And it's just kind of, you just have to have the dedication and want and drive to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think another thing that adds to the difficulty of quote getting good is it depends on the game, because some games, like I run occasionally the Security Breach Five Nights at Freddy's game, but that still gets updated. So sometimes they'll update something that blocks a whole part of the run. The whole community all dives in together like, how do we re-break the game that they've just fixed because they've patched like this one thing that we could do to save time. Now that's gone. So everyone starts to try and find the next way to cut time off. So I guess like it is a lot of practice and doing the same things over and over until, like you said, it becomes muscle memory. But another thing that makes it more difficult and how you would get better at it is learning how to adapt, especially because at any moment, like the game, like you could come across a glitch that you've never seen after running the game 1,000 times, and you have to think, all right, I'm here, what do I do now?
That's really interesting. And you've also brought up something which pretty much segues into the next question of everybody coming together and figuring out how to fix the thing that was once broken so you can break it again. So what are some of those roles in the background that people don't understand? Because I'm assuming not everybody will speed run a game, but they specifically only want to look for the glitches. So are there roles or people like that in your communities that you're in the game that you're speed running?
Oh, definitely. There are people who only focus like individual levels in games even. And those people are like between that and people who try to figure out like task strats, like programming TaskBot to like automatically run through games to figure out how they can break them. But there's plenty of people like that. And even just people who, another thing is that a lot of speedrunning communities also will have just like races against each other, which is super cool. And just that kind of support that you have from other people is just amazing. And also another thing is even like this is more pertaining to performances and stuff, but the people you have commentating even for your runs when you're doing events, some of those people may not even know the game exactly as well as you do, and that type of support, just being like moral support, is super useful. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I think another thing that a lot of people forget is that for a lot of games you have your speedrun timer, but they've programmed it with the game to split your times when you reach certain points in the game. And the people that run through the game and they set up the auto split timers, or for Resident Evil, there's a speedrun trainer, so it'll let you go into certain points in the game and practice just that bit. But these are people who take time out of their day, like their lives, while they still work full-time jobs to make all these tools for people. Then you got people who they moderate the leaderboards and stuff and check everyone's runs to make sure everything's a fair competition. And then people who just in the community will constantly go out of their way to help people who are new, to be like, I'm not a moderator for this or anything, but if you want, just message me. Like, I run the game. I'm not like the world record holder, but I know the game inside out. There's a lot of people who come together and make all these little things that once you speedrun a lot, you can forget. Like things like the auto run splitter and stuff. Once you've got it all set up, it just works and you forget that it's just there and it just becomes a tool that you use. But then someone had to sit there and filter through that and make it so that you can remove certain ones that you don't want it to count. Like the one for Resident Evil 3, I've removed like 90% of them because I'm like, if I leave them all in, the speedrun timer is going to be 17 foot long and it's going to tell me every 3 seconds if I was faster. I'm like, I'd rather just have it be shorter. But the fact that someone took all the time to go through and program it in where like, once this door's open, split the timer. When you pick up this item, split, like that kind of thing. I don't even know how they do it. I just know that without them doing that, it would be so much more difficult.
Definitely.
But I think that's so interesting to me because it's also reframed or changed my perspective of speedrunning, because I'm thinking, oh, I have to be that person who does the speedrunning when technically I could be support in some way. And I'm like,
absolutely,
I actually don't have to run this entire game. I could just pick a stage of something and get really good at that and figure that out. And that's so helpful for me. That brings a lot less pressure to even jump into that. So that's nice. And then that might actually be like the stepping stone for little weird people like me who are like, just do a stage. And then next thing you know, I would actually run the thing. But that's really awesome to know.
Yeah.
Whew. I'm so much. So whether you do this part-time or full-time, and I'm not asking you to actually say that to people here, but here's the question. Whether you do this part-time or full-time, there's always an opportunity to make gaming a money-making opportunity. How do you manage to keep speedrunning fun while making it a job? If, of course, you even consider it that way.
Sure. So I'm a variety streamer, and because of that, I have like my community from that as well. A lot of them are there for the speedrunning, but that keeps things fun. Because obviously I get to love my community and I love interacting with my community, and it's so fun to just like hang out and speedrun, whether I'm like focusing on the game or not focusing on the game and just speedrunning at the same time. It's always a good time. I feel there's definitely more there should be more opportunities for speedrunners, especially like with esports becoming such a big industry. I feel like I'm like, where are all the speedrunning competitions? Like, where are they? Can we please get some speedrunning competitions? And I think stuff like that, I'm hoping that with speedrunning becoming more of a popular thing, that we'll get some more of those types of events. That would be excellent. Yeah.
That's pretty much exactly where I am with it as well.
Yeah, right.
Oh my gosh. Like for me, like I've been arguing to people forever. Like it is, to me, speedrunning is an esport. It have to be able to understand strats, keep your cool, keep yourself hydrated and healthy. There's so many things that are very parallel to it, and I just don't know why we don't see these competitions yet. So I feel like somebody's gonna pick it up and just say, hey, I'll put money behind it, and then next thing you know, it's gonna blow up even more, but we'll see.
Yeah.
So here's a more deeper question here. Answer this however you feel. Don't feel pressure to answer this in the way you think I or anybody else needs to hear it.
Okay.
So We tend to see an overwhelmingly amount of male presenting people speedrunning. We know women, femmes, and non-binary people play games too. So, any ideas why there's not as much visible representation online? And is there any programming you love that's actually changing this narrative?
Yeah, so I can tell you why there's not visual representation online. It's because the gaming community is not great, very toxic, and a lot of women don't want to be harassed. So because of that, you don't see women at speedrunning events, and I hate this. I absolutely hate this. I always encourage women to apply to put themselves out there because this is ridiculous. Come on. So I'm gonna, self-promote here, but one of the things that my group Lady Arcaders does is we provide like a space for women to feel like safe in providing them a stage to perform and show off games that they love and speedruns and do speedrunning, and so that they have a nice little submission video to submit to other events, to put themselves out there, to give them the experience of being in an event where they get to do it their way. And I think that's very valuable, and I will always encourage women to put themselves out there. I know a lot of them are nervous, and I try to be like, no, you got this, because and every single time they do a showcase, it's, I don't know what you were nervous about, you did amazing. And so I think it's difficult, obviously, to deal with the harassment, and I can understand why a lot of women do not want to put themselves out there but I think that encouraging and creating groups of like finding other women who also speedrun the same games you do to create senses of community and not like rally together, but push yourselves into the leaderboards. And I'm all for seeing more women in speedrunning events in general. It's a thing that needs to happen.
Yes, absolutely. It's the thing as well, like you're saying, like the gaming space can be so toxic towards women. And literally just for the reason that you are a woman, not like you're performing any worse. It's not like you're demanding to take someone else's spot. It's literally just because you exist that they're like, oh, I don't like you.
Yeah.
And the thing with your group, especially, and other groups like that, and like I know that GDQ has their, I think it's Flame and Frost Fatales.
Yes, they also have a Frame Fatales group. They do events like twice a year as well. And they're an all-women's event as well. Yeah.
The great thing about that is you don't make change with inaction. Like you need people to be there being like, you might not like to see women speedrunning, but shut your face, we're doing it anyway, kind of thing.
Exactly.
Like, I think for me as well, like another reason that you don't, like you said, another reason that you don't see a lot of women doing it is because of the harassment that you get just for daring to exist in a space where women do. Like non-binary people get the same thing. Like there's so many things where it's, oh, but you're just wanting extra attention because you're a woman. It's like, no, I just want people to understand that I love speedrunning and I'm gonna keep doing it whether or not you're sat there like being angry. If you want to be angry, at least watch the stream as well, so I get the additional revenue from your anger. But like, don't talk. I don't want to hear you being angry at me. You could just sit in the background. But like you said, more like there needs to be more like pushing forward of people being like, get a whole bunch of like women together, and eventually when people see that isn't being reacted to negatively, more different places will be like, oh, who would even care if you're losing people watching you because you're putting women in there? You didn't want those people watching you anyway.
Exactly.
They weren't providing anything. But I'm hoping that does mean that, especially with the Frame Fatales and stuff and like Lady Arcaders and stuff, I hope that means that more people will start being like, I can do it. Like, you're obviously gonna be worried because eventually you'll get some kind of harassment because people who can be anonymous on the internet will just do that.
Yeah.
But knowing that there's spaces that you can go where you could just be like, I'm gonna be me as unapologetically as I can, and I'm gonna have fun doing the things I want to. The more of those we have, I think the more we'll see women in these kind of spaces without it being like, oh wow, this is different. I wasn't expecting to see like an all women's event. It'll be, oh, we're just watching an event.
Yeah.
No, hopefully that happens soon. Because I've been in, to be very, very clear, I love AGDQ and SGDQ, but there have been times where I'm like, I would love to see more trans women. I would love to see more women here. I don't see any, and to be clear, everybody presents very differently. So these are assumptions too, to be very clear, but I don't always see that. I don't see people hyping it up, and I'm just like, can I get a little more of that? You kind of want a little more of that. And then every now and then I think about Frame Fatales, and I'm like, I don't see the push behind it the way I would love to see it, because I'm always missing it. And I'm like, I always know when ADGQ and SGDQ is here, and I never really know when that is. And that's just something, I'll leave it at this. That's just something that I would like to see a change in. And obviously I can always go elsewhere because there are plenty of other speedrunning places that I've been watching. So it's fine, but at the same time, it's not. And I'll leave that. I'll leave that there. So we already know that it's toxic. We know that, but there's community. How do you navigate the good, bad, and the ugly? But then also, how do you find these people? Because we've been talking about community over and over again. And in my head, the only question that keeps popping up is like, how are you finding these people? Is it on speedrun.com? Is it on Discord? Like, where? How do you find this community?
Sure. Speedrun.com for every game usually has a Discord of their own. And I've been into varying types of speedrunning communities. Obviously, some of them are more active, some are not. Some are more toxic than others, some are not, some are super friendly. But you get the general vibe just by clicking in and being like, hey, I wonder what's up here. But another thing is also, I find that I meet a lot of people just who watch Twitch streams, where I will frequently just go and look up a category on Twitch for a game that I play, that I speedrun, or a game I'm interested in speedrunning, and I'll just chat and see about the game. And usually when you're speedrunning games on Twitch or YouTube, you will have someone from the community come by. And it's always cool to meet people like that. And yeah, it really depends though. Obviously I know that some speedrunning communities frequently have problems. And I've heard of speedrunning communities that are not friendly towards women and stuff like that. But it's a mixed bag, because basically anyone can be a moderator of a community. And I guess that kind of affects what the community is. Yeah.
Yep, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Especially when you've been around it a lot, you can tell certain behaviors of if a community is going to be good, or at least majoritively good, versus if they definitely don't say no to toxic behavior. They might not be actively encouraging it, but they don't actively discourage it either. And there, like you said, there are some that are just straight toxic the whole time. And I think I would like to see more, rather than just single game-based speedrunning communities, there will be them somewhere and I just haven't managed to find them, but just more communities of people who speedrun without the need to have all these toxic behaviors involved as well. You just want to talk about a game you like, or even a category of games you like, because I run three different horror game series. So there's Resident Evil, Five Nights at Freddy's, and I'm so good at what I do, I've actually forgotten the third one, because it's a single game and it's not very long. Black Eyes is what it's called. But the speedrunning communities for the Resident Evil games are split between the games for the most part, but I would like just a singular hub for just if you're into the Resident Evil games, or just survival horror speedrunning, or horror speedrunning. And to one point, I could just make it myself, but also I don't have the time to continually moderate it. And
yeah, it's a lot.
I don't really want to have to vet people to be have you been toxic in the past? And then pick who will and won't be a moderator. So it's a lot of juggling whether or not you can spend the time in the communities, because you don't have to talk all the time. But especially for women, non-binary people, anyone who's not just a guy, it's a lot more you have to do a lot more research into a community to be is my presence here gonna cause any sort of trouble for me purely just because I am who I am?
Yeah, that's what makes me afraid. That's
so
what the top is. Yeah, go ahead.
So, worth noting, if you really like a game, you do not have to engage with the community for it whatsoever. Obviously, there's some risk involved with that because they could be mean to you otherwise and harassment and stuff. But if you really like a game, like, you should just run it and forget what everyone else says. It's not worth it. But there's, in regards to like major speedrunning hubs, I really enjoy like the Sonic speedrunning Discord community is excellent. It's split into games and 3D games. And so basically, it's really easy to just like hop between games. If you're like, hey, I like Sonic 1, maybe I should just try Sonic 2. And you just check the other channel and learn all about it. So those types of communities are really nice. But yeah, like I said, if there's a game that you want to speedrun, you should just do it. Like, do not care what the leaderboard or what the community is like.
I think the other thing as well is don't stress where you are on the leaderboard.
Yes.
Even if you're at the end of it, you're still on that leaderboard. If there's 500 people in front of you, in the grand scheme of the 8 billion people in the world, having only 500 people ahead of you is not that bad. Like, when I first started with Resident Evil, I was in like the top 150, but I was like, damn, 150 is so bad. But then I was like, if I put 150 people in a room, it was like, this is all the people that are ahead of me. That's not as big as it seems. So not stressing where you are and just doing it for fun, at least for me, that brings a lot more people to you who are just there for the enjoyment of it, not the ones who are there for the competition. And if you end up getting better and you climb the leaderboard, for me at least, that's just a bonus. Because as long as I'm still running the game and still enjoying it, that's all I care about. I think that fosters a community of people who feel the same.
Awesome. Before we head into this last question, I just want to bring up two things. One, both of you are great. I'm going to tell you right now, I can't play Sonic because I've had trauma from Labyrinth Zone and never going to touch.
Oh my God, that's my favorite zone. I also used to hate the drowning music, and it's one of those things where this is a thing that has bothered me forever. And then now it's like, oh, the drowning music is happening. Oh, I know I've got this.
No, can't do it. No. And then Panthur, you said you run Resident Evil, and I'm afraid of all of them. So it doesn't even matter which one it is.
Oh, like speedrunning, it makes you so much less afraid of anything in it, because by the time the zombies realize you're there, you're like 8 doors away.
Oh no, I could just imagine myself just like stalling. Oh my gosh, I'm paralyzed with fear. Like, I just growing up with older siblings playing both of those games, I'm just like, and I was a kid, I'm like, yeah, you all are great. I'm just gonna sit here and freak out. And so both of those games, maybe I should just get over my fear and probably play both games fully and not be afraid. Who knows? But the very last question, we're coming to the end here. Other than just jumping into it, what advice would you give viewers who want to join a speedrunning community? Are there groups, websites, or other spaces people should know about? I know we talked about Discord and speedrun.com, but are there any other ones or just specialty areas people should be looking at? Or even maybe, quote unquote, the top streamers or lower streamers or mid-range streamers, even yourselves, that people should be looking at to understand how the game mechanics works for the things that you run? Very long-winded.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Let's see. So we had talked about Frame Fatales. That is a great women's only community to join if you want expertise on speedrunning. There are like 1,000 people in there, I think, something like that. And if you have a question about speedrunning or just general about tech stuff or streaming, they are extremely supportive. So communities like that. I'm going to plug Lady Arcaders again, because we're all about all gaming, but we have a sizable amount of speedrunners in there as well. And a lot of them are willing to help you and teach you games. And that's such a nice thing to have, like people who are willing to show you how to speedrun, show you the ropes. In terms of like Twitch itself, I enjoy going and watching various hotfix shows that they have on GDQ. There's actually one called She Is Speed that runs every other Monday on hotfix. It's showing off women speedrunners, and so like I'll watch those events, find people from there, and then go follow them and watch their content like aside. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Oh, sorry.
That's pretty much exactly what I do.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that existed. Like, I know Hotfix exists, but there are like so many shows that I'm like, my brain can't do this. So I'm like, I'm out. So knowing that exists is super helpful for me because I had no idea. Now I need to go look at it.
Definitely, yeah. 100%.
Awesome. This was great. I'm going to go ahead and do this wonderful little outro. So, how cool is speedrunning? There's something so special about watching people break games 1 second at a time, but we can't lose sight of the issues that are intertwined with the people who play our favorite games. Wonder how you can support? You can do so by following speedrunners, but also uplifting them too. This is Open World Dialogue, sponsored by Maximum Games. I'm Robin, signing off. Bye and happy gaming.